Hi, Keith. We are live both on YouTube and Facebook. It's a pleasure and honor and a privilege to host Keith Thurman, the world class champion for boxing. How are you doing today, Keith?
I'm great and I'm happy to be here talking to you and sharing stories. Thank you for having me.
Sure. So, my first question is you take us back to the beginning on what first drew you to boxing and what kept.
It's a beautiful story. It it just really it just feels like destiny. I was 7 years old when I met my boxing coach, and before that, as a very young boy, I liked martial arts. My father did a little bit of martial arts, and he taught me like some katas. They do certain patterns. Karate's a little bit different. So he taught me like a routine that they give to the white belt boys. And I was just like a 4-year-old kid when he taught me this little thing in karate. But I never went past that, like, oh, mommy, take me to dojo. I want to go to daddy's dojo or anything like that. Because my parents were separated. So I was raised by my mother, and I spent most of my time with my mother, and I spent some weekends with my father. And we would watch kung fu films and different martial arts, Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee, Steven Seagal, Jean-Claude Van Damme, very famous people in the 90s, right? Very famous. So that planted the seed. And then when I was a very young boy, at 7 years old, I was a part of the after school YMCA program.
Mhm.
This is because my mother worked a 9 to 5, so she couldn't pick me up directly when school was over. So I stayed with the rest of the kids at the after school program. It was a
Mm.
YMCA program with the elementary school. And the the boxing coach, he happened to be the head custodian of the elementary school. So he was a janitor.
Ah.
But he was the head janitor. He took care of all the maintenance and things for that elementary school, and he had a close relationship with the principal. So he came up with this idea and he got the principal to agree to put on a boxing exhibition and see how many kids in the school would be interested for an after school boxing program.
Mm.
So I was very fortunate to witness this exhibition that he hosted. And after seeing the exhibition, I was inspired. And I remember to this day the paperwork and how I went home and I took my backpack off. As soon as I got home, I reached in, I pulled the paperwork out, and I said, Mom, I want a box.
Wow.
And I mean, from the age of 7 to the age of 36, I mean, it's 29 years later, boxing has been my life. And it started with that. It kind of almost fell in my lap, so it's another blessing. Boxing has been a blessing. And my coach, he trained me really hard from the age of 7 to the age of 20 when he passed away. And I was a young professional at the time, but not famous. Nobody knew who I was. Um, but he was the one who believed in me. He told my mother, my father, and everybody in the Tampa Bay area when I was about 14 years old. He said that this kid will be world champion one day.
Wow. So what aspect of that boxing, called you? Like, you saw there was an exhibition.
So when I saw the exhibition, there were two things that stood out. One was the coach brought a kid from another school. He was a middle schooler. He was actually in the 6th grade. And
Mm.
he asked if there was anybody who would like to do some boxing against this kid. And what was interesting was one of the biggest 5th graders in the whole school, he raised his hand. He was this old, oversized kid, not really athletic kid, but big kid, probably strong. And he wasn't scared of a fight. He raised his hand. He said, "I'll fight." Nobody asked his parents for permission, by the way. Okay, this was a long time ago. right? So he obliged to do it, and he got up there, and even though he was bigger than the other kid was older but smaller. So there were pros and cons there. But the one kid who was older, he also trained in boxing.
Mm,
So you could see when they went at it for just a few minutes that one kid had technique and he could block, and the other kid was just doing his best to fight,
mm,
and he was sloppy, you
mm.
know? So my eyes saw that, and I saw that even a smaller guy can beat a bigger guy if he has technique, right?
Got it.
And even though the young man, he got a little bit of a bloody nose, he never cried or anything. He just sat down. They took all the headgear off, they and the gloves. He just sat down and everything was fine, you know? But he clearly was outmatched from technique to no technique. And then the second thing that day was there was a little boy that was amongst the kids, amongst all of us. His name was Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
And it just so happens that Johnny happened to be the smallest kid in the school.
Mm,
So we actually used to call him Little Johnny.
mm,
Little Johnny gets on stage. He doesn't fight anybody, but they put the gloves on him and he works the mitts, the pads. And little Johnny's moving his head, boom, 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 under, under. He comes back up, boom, boom, boom. And in my mind, I'm like, wow,
got it.
and nobody knew that little Johnny had this boxing hands, technique. Boom, 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 boom. Nobody knew. And I thought to myself that instant, if he can teach Johnny how to box, he can teach me how to box. And
Right.
when you're 7 years old, you're not thinking, what is this? What is boxing? What is this? To me, it was like karate without kicking, you know?
Yeah.
And I already like karate. So I said, sign me up.
When you shared that it's a technique, right? I feel we all breathe, but the way Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar has taught us the breath work to take care of our mental well-being, that is also a technique, isn't it? If you have the right tools and techniques, you can succeed in any field. And I think it's,
Definitely.
yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you for
I
sharing.
think that's why I resonate with some of the programs in the art of living, is because I know what it's like to have knowledge and techniques that I want to share with other people, you
Mm,
know? And if they I've practiced these techniques of mine for so long, these kids, when I instruct them, if they just follow, behind my instructions, they can save themselves years of figuring out and practicing, because I've done so much hard work, you
mm.
know? It just like, so I think there's just something about working with coaches my whole life that I like the structure of, let's say, like the part 1 and the part 2 course, that you don't just get to do what you want to do like us Americans are used to. Oh, I can pay for this, I can afford this, I want this experience, I want that experience. If he just wanted to sell stuff to the American people, it could all just be for sale. On one level it kind of is, but it's kind of not, because it's fabricated in a program that he wants you to follow. And I like that aspect coming from my background.
Yeah, I've been teaching intuition for kids, and then there they say, "Did you know who discovered all of this?" They said he must be scientist of the mind for him to know what works to calm the mind, right? So I think you're a scientist in boxing field, and you can guide people because you have the experience. And I think in every field we need a coach. And now I would like to ask another question. You have faced a lot of challenges growing up, isn't it? Can you share a bit about your early life and what helped you rise above those struggles? Because it's not easy to to be a world class champion. So how did you move through it and be a world class champion in boxing?
Yeah, as a kid, I remember I started to compete in the sport at a very young age of 9 years old.
Mhm.
And so I got to experience, like, I believe becoming like state champion at the age of 10 years old.
Wow.
And that was exactly like my reaction as a boy, like, wow, I state champion, I hold that title this year. Next year maybe some kid beats me or some, I don't know. And the challenging thing as like a kid, every year you're getting bigger, right? So you're 10 years old, 11 years old, 12. So in the boxing, eventually, as I kept growing, I would go into different age brackets,
Mm,
you know, competing in different age brackets. And it wasn't until I was like 14 years old where n- not only was my strength starting to mature on another level, a little quicker than some of my peers. I was starting to knock down people in practice, even if they were older than me, 21 years old, 23 years old. I'm 14, and I'd hit them with a big punch, and I was dropping them. And my coach was really excited. That's when he said, he's like, this boy's got it. He can be at the top. And he started predicting those things of my future at the age of 14, 15 years old.
mm,
But it was nice, becoming knockout, winning tournaments. But I got that state tournament, and then I got regional tournaments. And at that 14, 15-year old, I went on a streak where I was actually winning a lot of tournaments.
mm.
And I won 3 national tournaments in a row that I
Wow.
competed in. So I remember we have this booklet that keeps track of your record as a kid. It's at my mother's house. I have this little booklet, old booklet, and uh, I think I went like 25, 26 fights in a row without losing. Like
Wow.
from a certain age, and then I lost, and then at this age I win like 25, 26 fights in a row, and then I finally lost another fight. So I almost went like 2 years or something undefeated as a kid. It was just kind of a strong gap for me to keep winning.
Mm,
And two things happened. It was the same thing that happened, but it happened in two different places. So
mhm,
there's an event when you fight in a tournament, you win, you get a trophy. But at the end of the tournament, certain judges, they get together and they create the the best performing boxer of the whole event,
mm.
right?
Ah,
It was called Outstanding Boxer Award. Those were their words. Outstanding Boxer Award.
mhm,
And I remember I got my first Outstanding Boxing Award. And then I got, that was on the state level. Then I got an Outstanding Boxing Award on the regional level.
mhm.
Then I happened to the first national tournament I won. At that tournament, on a national level, they gave me the Outstanding Boxer Award.
Wow. Which age was that? How old?
15,
Wow.
15. So it was this pattern that as I was turning 16 years old, because when you're 16, like, I'll be 18 soon. And then when you're 18, you're like, I can make money. What am I going to do for money? So by the time I was 16 and I was thinking, I said, you're actually doing good with this boxing. I said, we were never really sure what would happen. But I said, maybe in my heart of hearts, my coach said, you're going to be champion. You're going to be champion. But it's hard for a kid to believe, you don't have much. You don't see any money. You're just
Mm,
living a normal life. What does it mean to be champion? I don't know what that means. So but I slowly started to believe maybe I can at least become a professional boxer.
mm,
And that's when things just kind of, my focus was always set on the highest, cuz before I turned pro, when I was an amateur winning tournaments, the highest goal you can do is be an Olympian, right?
mm,
To be an Olympian. So many sports know what it means to compete at the Olympics. So in my sport, only amateur boxers compete in the Olympic Games. And I was 16, 17, 18. I was now qualified, and there was the Olympics coming. 2008 was the China Games coming.
Mm.
So I competed in the tournaments that got me to the USA Olympic trials, because before the Olympic Games, that country has to hold a trials to get the best athletes to represent that nation.
Got it.
So I was participating in the USA Olympic trials. And I win. I got to the finals and I lost.
Oh, that's
So
tough.
yeah, that was tough. That was really like everything I would try to do in my youth was to get to that Olympic level. And
Mm,
this one talented boy beat me. He went to China, and instead of going to China, right before I turned 19, I fought in my hometown, right outside my hometown in Tampa Bay, Florida, for
mm,
my first ever professional match at right before 19 years old. And it's just a 4 round fight. As when you first start pro, you start on the just the 4 round level, and I
mm.
made $1,000. And I said, well, at least that's better than a trophy, right? I used to fight for like medals, like little medals and little trophies. So I was really happy to
Get
start now having like a career, because I'm still just 18. It You can almost call it my first job, really. And I had I had to just keep pushing, pushing, and it was a very slow struggle. But from the age of 19, and then about 6 years later, I was able to win my first world title. But it was very challenging because you don't know when this is going to happen, when that is going to happen. But you're young, so you just keep working hard. You
mm,
know, it's like um, you know, almost like what they say in the Bhagavad Gita, to do the actions and not worry about the fruit of
yeah.
the action. There was something coming. You always could want more. I had a few opportunities to go to California to sign some contracts with some people. It never felt right.
Mm,
And I just had to keep patiently waiting. um and then eventually, when you're really working hard and you show talent, it's hard for an industry or the universe to deny people,
yes.
right? You hear other people's stories. If they're really pushing and pushing, and why how are they gonna, you keep knocking, you keep showing up. Sometimes they say, how did you get this job? And it says, well, they said they didn't want to hire, but I said I really need a job, so I kept coming, and then eventually they gave me a job, right? So I think that no matter what struggles I went through in life, I just always believed that what I'm doing is going to pay off, and just holding on to some of that faith. I think it got me through so much. Even to this day, if I'm going through any hard times, um, I think holding on to the faith that things will get better is what always gets me through.
Beautiful. Yes. Very nice. Now, boxing is such an intense, high pressure sport, isn't it?
Yeah.
What initially attracted you to the Art of Living Part 1 course?
Well, this is a fun question, but the answer is I was not attracted to the part 1 course. I was attracted to the part 2 course.
Ah, got it.
And I was actually very fortunate that my first time in at the Boone Ashram, I was actually invited as a guest.
Hmm.
So I got to interview Sri Ravi Shankar, and they said, as an exchange, we will put this on our social platform, and as an exchange, you can come to the ashram and participate in the festivities of Guru Purnima. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, very nice. I want to do silence. They said, no, no problem. Sure, sure. You want to come do silence? That's no problem. But if you want to come do silence, you actually need to come a few days earlier because we need to get you to do the part one breath work. And
Okay.
so I actually came with my wife and my one daughter at the time. She was
Mm-hmm.
just 1 years old, and we came just a little bit earlier. So normally that retreat of Guru Purnima, which will be coming up next month, is roughly a 5 day retreat for people. But I had to come a little earlier, so my stay was 7 days at the ashram,
Mm-hmm.
and they put us in a basic, lodging. We were by the spa. For those who are familiar, we were just right by the spa, and I said, well, everything's on the house. We're not going to complain about the room. I'm here for the experience, here to meet the guru. So my dear friend and almost like a brother, Jitesh Vaswami, he
Mm-hmm.
initiated me into the Kriya at not the Bangalore, but at the Boone Ashram. And a few days later, when other people were starting to flood in, right? I came in early, so it was very calm and peaceful. Then people are starting to flood in, check-ins are happening. And I think on that day, I went to the little kutir and I got to interview Guru Dev. And even to this day, I'm starting to really see what a blessing that one interview was for somebody like me who is new to the art of living. you know as I see so many people who have um, just been devotees for a long time, 8 years, 12 years, 15 years, and how many have an opportunity to sit and have just a simple unbiased chit chat for 14 minutes with Gurudev, and not knowing um, of all the work he does, all the prime ministers, all the politicians that he spoke to, you know. Ironically, before I met him, the only thing that I realized later is I actually read one of his books
Mm.
years ago. I read Shiva Sutras
Ah.
while I was on vacation with my wife in Tokyo. I was there for 1 month. I liked the book so much, I kept reading it. I finished the book. I put the book down, never picked it up again, never looked up the name Guru Dev, never looked up the art of living. And years later, I found myself, face to face with him. And then I remembered he did write that book, and I really enjoyed like how easily this old knowledge is to receive. So he just has a way of talking to us and make like complex philosophies or anything just more like an everyday philosophy and practice. So yeah, so really it was never about the part one. It was really about the part two and meeting Guru Dev. With my background, I always loved studying world religions. So
Mm.
I've known some things, preferably the Bhagavad Gita when it comes to the stories of Hinduism and learning about Krishna. Obviously, I read that one book on Shiva, but I just stumbled upon things, and I had the book Autobiography of a Yogi, other different traditional yoga books, Be Here Now by Ram Dev,
Mm.
and all of those contain so many beautiful stories. But to be with the living master and just to be in his presence the first time, it was um it was just surreal. He says, your vibrations speak more than your words, and there is really something about the presence of somebody who lives a life of purity. As a Westerner, I'm more familiar with the church and the concept of a saint, like a Catholic saint, and it's just beautiful to know that, you know, saintliness and this divine connection is is a human birthright. You
Mm.
know, a lot of us do get caught up in the world, into our desires, into our wants, into our needs, and very few will ask big questions. What is the meaning of life? Why am I really here? Is there a higher power, a higher purpose? Is there a an ultimate planner? Am I living out destiny, or is it free will? So I always liked philosophy, and then my love for philosophy ended up being a love for world religions. And then
Mm.
I studied a lot with the Buddhist and a little bit of the yogic systems. I did read Patanjali Yoga Sutras in my 20s as well.
Oh.
So it's just a blessing. I think the art of living came into my life at the right time. Like I said, my daughter was 1 years old, and now I have a second daughter who is 2, and my other one is now 4.
Wow.
So I've been with the art of living for 3 years. This Guru Purnima in July will be my 3 years with the art of living.
Mhm.
And not only is it beneficial to me, but when we spend our summers in Boone at the ashram, it's always a beautiful experience for my daughters and for the family as well. So I like that, that it benefits everybody in all ages. I got my father to learn the breathwork technique last year.
Oh.
So yeah, it's kind of a family thing. The art of living is one big family, and I really feel that. It's a very fun organization to be a part of. There's a lot of powerful, positive things that Gurudev is doing around the world, and there we have an old saying: if you can't beat them, join them.
Ah,
So, you
yeah.
know, I I I I focus on beating people in the ring, but I don't have a beautiful nonprofit. And I said I'm very happy and I'm grateful to participate and interact with such a strong foundation like the art of living.
Wow. You're truly blessed, like your t-shirt. When Gurudev first started teaching this program, it used to be 1 week long. He would initiate, he would start with Sudarshan Kriya, then he would initiate with Sahaj Mantra and the part two. And then later on, everybody said nobody has the bandwidth to take a week off. So that's why it got split into three. So I think you're blessed to have the original version of part one, part two, doing it back to back. Yes. So I have another question related to that. How did doing the Art of Living course shift your mindset around performance, stress, both in and out of the ring?
It's very funny, when I first left Bangalore ashram, I I was writing poetry,
I
you
heard.
know, after my first silent retreat, and even then my second one a year later. There was something about right before I leave the ashram, a lot of creativity comes up, and I ended up writing poetry and things of that nature. But I just remember when I first met Gurudev and I did the ashram and I came home, I actually stopped eating meat for a few months too. And I didn't go to Bangalore, or I didn't go to meet a guru to stop eating barbecue. I promise. Okay. Uh, I just, something about that high prana, sattvic energy. For months, I didn't eat any meat. And then eventually I got back into my old pattern. And
Mhm.
that's another thing that I noticed was that you you can change your energy, but from having these built-in habits and patterns, like they'll come back. And I was doing the daily home practice, the kriya. I was doing it, but in the beginning you do it like on and off, right? Like some people, like me, it's my job. I got to go to the gym every day. Most people, they're not in the gym every day. And then some people, they want to get back in the gym, but they only find themselves in there 1 or 2 days, and they're not consistent enough, right?
That's me.
But if
Yes.
you're not consistent enough, you're not going to get the results that you're looking for,
Hmm.
right? So I was very in and out, but eventually I got into a very good pattern, like 3 days on, 1 day off, 4 days on, 2 days off, little things like that. Um, and ironically, there was a time where I was spending more time trying to listen to Gurudev's knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And I I haven't I didn't have a fight coming up. And I was thinking to myself, if I keep listening to all this knowledge, if I really follow this guru, will I be able to punch people? So maybe Gurudev's not really the right teacher for me. Maybe he's too nice.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's too nice. But um there are some things that I just can't get away from, working with Gurudev. I really enjoy the time that I spend. I admire the work that he does, and it's nice to have an exemplar, right? Someone who really does so much good work in the world. I participated in just I was an attendee for the World
Cultural.
Culture Festival
Mhm.
that was hosted in DC. I have family in DC, so I visited them, stayed with them, and then drove over to the event every day. Um, and it was lovely to see that diversity, to see all those colors, all the beautiful dance, and just the celebration. Of course, the beautiful mass meditations that were being led by Guru Dev were lovely as well. Um, so what I learned was, you know, this is good for your everyday stress. And all I have to do is hit the switch, when it's time to punch somebody in the face, I have to go punch somebody in the face, and then I can come back and do some pranayama and everything will calm back down. So ironically enough, it was very hard for me last year in 2024. Um, I had an injury from my bicep tendon,
Oh.
and I had to pull out of a fight in Las Vegas.
Hmm.
I was already not fighting for 2 years,
I see.
and I was very inactive, which
Hmm.
gave me a lot of time to participate in the programs and try to keep my mind busy. But once I popped my bicep tendon, uh, I had a big fight. It was 2 weeks before a big fight in Vegas. We had all this buildup happening. I had to pull out of the fight, which means I didn't make any money that year.
Mm.
But right before my surgery, that year, I gave myself a 90-day Kriya challenge.
Mm.
And I did the breath work for 90 days leading up to my surgery. And then even post surgery, I had a way where I can just do a certain version of the Kriya because my hand was in a cast. I couldn't really do all of the all of the pranayama, but I was able to do a certain version. And so I stayed with it. And I just remember how I had every reason to be sad, mad, and depressed. But with the breath work, I was able to just slowly and smoothly kind of just get by month, not really knowing what the future held. I was very fortunate because right after not receiving a paycheck, I was able to do something in my taxes, and I got a very nice government get back, you
Wow.
know, which really helped my family that year, considering what ended up happening with my work and the finances. So it was a very tough year, but we just kind of sailed through it, and every with like minimal damage, and not a lot of stress. And I really kind of dedicate my breathwork practice because in 2024 I was able, after my 90-day challenge, it just became like a habit.
Mm.
It was very easy, and I actually was looking forward to the Kriya every day. So I missed like a week's worth of home practice for the whole year of 2024.
Wow.
And I didn't, I think because of my inactivity with my work and my recovery from the surgery, being in a cast, that year I also signed up for 3 silence courses. I did VTP. So I was able to just stay busy with some programs. And I think it really did help my mental health. Luckily for me, when 2025 hit just this April, I finally got back in action.
Ah.
And it was a 3 year comeback out of all this time, you know? And like you said, the stress, there wasn't a lot of stress on my end because I was kind of joyful to get back into doing what I love to do.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of people, writers, reporters. Keith Thurman is 36 years old. He's been out of the ring for 3 years. And all they do is come with a very negative, like,
Mm-hmm.
mindset. Like,
Mm-hmm.
who is this athlete today? What is going to happen? You know, and they have a lot of doubt, right? They can't say like, "Oh, we know he's not going to look good," or "We know he's going to look good," but because they haven't seen me for so long, it just allowed so much doubt to come into those people's minds, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I know how I feel, and I knew I was going to have a strong comeback, and I didn't worry about their doubt. I just looked forward to allowing to remind them what skills I bring to the sport of boxing and the level of entertainment that I bring.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily for me, I got to travel. The comeback fight was in Australia, Sydney, Australia.
Uh-huh.
And for the first time, because when I met Gurudev, I fought in February, but then I met him in July. And I
Uh,
haven't competed for 3 years. And I've had the Kriya with me for this time. So only in Australia was the first fight where before the match, I got to do Sudarshan Kriya before the match.
how was that?
It really centered me, knocked off any nerves or anything. I felt 100% in my element. I know I trained hard. I know I was mentally and physically prepared for the action that night.
Mm-hmm.
And then just being able to do that Kriya, for anybody who can go back and watch the fight, it's Thurman versus Jarvis. Brock Jarvis was his name. You're
Uh-huh.
gonna want to watch the one that shows you the intro of me walking to the ring. Because for the first time in my fight career, I danced my way into the ring.
Beautiful.
I was dancing into the ring. I knocked the guy out and I danced my way out of the ring. And it just really reminded me of the joy and the love that I have for boxing, and I'm just glad that I got to participate in the sport that I love after such a long layoff. And finally, people saw the good performance, so they can get rid of all that doubt. And we'll see what's in store later this year. But there's one saying from the art of living that I really admire and I hold very dear to my heart, that only the best, only the highest and the best shall happen in life. Shall come to me in this life. You know.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, yes, totally. So, in short, you can say that the Sudarshan Kriya practice, doing the part two, helped you with your low time in your mental wellness and being, and gave you that optimism. You already had a lot of faith. It added to your faith that only the best will happen. Isn't it, Keith?
Yeah, the courses helped a lot because when you're walking away from a big contract, like big fights in Vegas, and the family could use that income. Everybody can use that income. You know, it's we can easily get caught up into, why is this happening to me? How can this happen to me again right before the fight? I should have fought him one-handed. I should have just stepped in the fight with my injury just to fight, just to make the money. This is what goes on in fighters' minds, right? It's like,
Mm,
even if they're injured, when it's really close to a fight, They want to fight because if you come out of the fight, you walk away from the fight, you walk away from the money,
Mm.
which can be good income from the year, because once the surgery happens, you can't fight for the rest of the year, right? The surgery is like a minimum 8-month recovery, you
Mm.
know? So there was a lot. There was a lot. It was very hard to really stay positive, you know. I remember staying in California because I was in California at an Airbnb. My doctor did the surgery in California, and I stayed for the initial physical therapy. And I had an Airbnb, and luckily for me, things were just falling into place, like just helping me out little by little. I had a friend in California that owed me money, and a lot of friends that owe money don't pay you back.
Right.
So, luckily for me, he actually gave me some money to pay me back, and he paid for my 2 months my Airbnb.
Wow,
So
great.
the whole stay of California was on his dime and not my dime. So
Mm.
that kind of helped take the stress off of that trip and some of the financial burden of that trip, and my fees of working with the doctor. That helped. And so while I was there, I actually did a silence, and next to the Airbnb was a lake. And I would go to that lake to do a meditation or do a kriya mostly almost every day. And
Uh-huh.
no matter, and I'm in a cast, right? I'm in a cast. I, you know, I can't really do much. I couldn't take my fight. And I'm sitting there by the lake, and the birds are chirping. The sky is blue. The air is fresh. And it's just such a beautiful day.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you want to if you want to focus on the problem, you can focus on the problem. But there was something about that lake, and there was something about the birds, and how the birds, like, what do the birds eat? Worms? Like, what do they? They're like, hey man, I don't got enough worms in the dirt. God needs to put more worms. When you see that, like, so much in the universe is already being taken care of, there was something about the nature, sitting in nature, and there was this little voice that said, you're going to be okay. And I didn't know how I was going to be okay, but it just kept saying, you're going to be okay. And we got through the year, and here we on to a next year. And my career is back in action, and I have some potential to close out this year potentially with a world title shot. So, what just like how rain comes, but it doesn't last forever. Winter comes, but it doesn't last forever. And I think there was something about 2024 really helped me see that problems in life are more seasonal,
Mm.
and you just have to be patient and hold on to whatever faith you can. And as our old Bible thumpers would say, this too shall pass.
This too shall pass for sure. Yes.
Yeah.
I remember my son, he likes cross country running, and he and his friend, they practice a lot, and then he broke the world record in his school for the
Mhm.
fastest cross country runner. I said, Jayant, even your friends are as competitive as you are. How did you do it? He said, Mom, I have meditation on my side, and that gives me the edge. So he practices his part kriya on a daily basis, and I think winning is not only physical capacity resilience, but also mental resilience, because being on the top takes a lot of mental stamina, isn't it, Keith?
Yeah, I used to not enjoy everything my coach did when I was young. I mean, I was a 9-year-old boy running 8 miles. There was a lot of practices that I did. My coach used to have this weight vest, 45 pounds,
Wow.
and he says, okay, go run 2 miles. And
Wow.
so I do that, I come back, and then like a week went by, and he says, go run. Okay, I come run, I come back. After the run, I take it off, right?
Uh-huh.
This week he says, don't take it off. Now I want you to jump rope,
Wow.
right? So I was running and I come back and now I have to jump rope. And he even had to put duct tape around because this thing would jump with you, you know? So he had to duct tape it around my body and now I'm jumping rope. And then like some other another week goes by, he says, "Okay, I you ran, you jump rope, but don't take it off. Now I want you to do this exercise." So he kept adding, you know? And it was like torture. It's like, what is this guy doing to me, you know? But all those strenuous physical things that I did, it really made me mentally tough. You
Mm,
know, it made and that mental toughness, you never know when you're going to need it in life. But
mm,
there will be a time that you need it, you know? And for athletes, you know, if you're competing and you're not mentally tough, then that's when you falter, you
correct.
know? That's when you falter. You're easy to give in, easy to give up, you know?
Right.
And so I was like looking back, I got so used to just doing whatever he would make me do. He was very militant, so he had me built from a young age to like a sir, yes, sir mentality. But sometimes it was very hard. And sometimes I almost like want to say no, almost want to give up. But it was a lot of that, you know, like now that I have my own children, you know, there's so much that it's like, oh, they don't have to do this, they don't have to do that, you know, or I'll just pick this up for them, you know. And it's easy, but then there's an age where it's like, hey, you pick it up now, you know? It's like you know, my 4-year-old daughter said, Zella made the mess. I said, yeah, but you're old enough to pick up the mess. So why don't you help everybody? Mommy and daddy have to pick it up already. Why don't you help us out and pick it up, right? And
Beautiful.
so there's so many things that like you really don't want to do, but really challenging things. But it's always once you do the challenging thing, you never can do a challenging thing and not feel rewarded.
Mm,
So I call that the ultimate dilemma, you know? Like I'm from Florida. I don't like ice bath, but all these athletes are doing ice bath. All these biohacking people, they're doing ice baths. I don't like ice bath, but every time I do an ice bath, I do feel rewarded. But I'm not gonna act like I'm gonna do it. Like I can't talk myself in. I'm gonna talk myself out of it before I talk myself into it. But every time I actually go into it, it's actually very rewarding, and I find that a unique aspect of life is that you know we need to do those things that are challenging, and that's where the reward really comes.
that's true. Very true. I want to ask you two more questions. The second before the last is a lot of people are skeptical or hesitant about trying the Art of Living Part 1 course. What would you say to someone who is on the fence about taking the course?
You know, you never know, you know, what kind of people are listening or, you know, stumbling upon this type of information. The first thing I'd like to say is what I love about the art of living is the title itself, right? The art of living.
Mm-hmm.
It really comes off non denominational. And, you know, what that means is that it's for everybody, right? The art of living is not for a Christian or a Hindu or a Muslim or the art of living is not here to convert you. You know, it's not here to say that, you know, we're better than you. It's like who could not benefit from learning something? Let's just imagine that there's this thing out there that's really the art of living, you know? Who could not benefit from learning such an art, right? So I'm my field falls under the category of a martial art. I'm a striker. I learned how to box. I'm a striker. The poetic and painting arts. And there's so many arts in the world. So regardless of your anything from atheism to having religious standards, the art of living is still for you. Um, it really, regardless of how you feel about a guru, I happen to love my experiences with Sri Sri Ravi Shankar. I'm very grateful to his playfulness, his
Right?
charm, his smile, and his ability to connect to the community. But regardless of how you feel about a guru, what gurus have done in America in the past, um, a cult, and things of that nature, first, when it comes to taking the part one course, it's it's a technique, you know, um, and it's a science revered back technique where they've done, research and studies that this specific technique has proven to lower cortisol
Yeah.
within the system after 21 days. And cortisol happens to be the number one stress hormone. So, just to go back real quick, when I popped my bicep tendon, I actually was sitting right here where I am right now. That
Mhm.
night, I popped it in the gym training, and I had all these thoughts going through my head. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. Should I call my manager in the morning? How do I update them? Do I get it? I think I need an MRI. There's all these thoughts going through my mind. I sat down where I am right now. I did the Kriya that night because I already trained so hard in the morning. My regiment for that fight camp, a lot of times I was getting my practice in at night and not in the daytime. So I did it that night. And it was only after that that my mind settled down and I could think clearly and rationally. And I had to be open and honest with myself. And I said, you do need to call your managers in the morning. You do need to get an update. You cannot get an MRI till Monday morning. We will do that, and we'll just go from there.
Yes.
And I was just able to talk myself through it and have the clarity. I found the clarity after the practice, and I find that very unique because I could have been very restless all night long with such an injury, with a scenario, with a deadline, and different things happening. So, if you're stressed, um, if you've ever been curious in pranayama and breath work, and you want to try something new, the beauty of it is it's a one-time fee so that you can learn something that you get to carry with you for a lifetime.
Yes.
So that's very beneficial. Um, a lot of people enjoy the process, the 3 day experience of the program, regardless of if it's in person or online. There's a lot of positive feedback. Some people are very community, and some communities like LA, where the LA Center is, different places might have more access to in-person events. But don't think that you know you're getting the same material um, live, just in the comfort of your home. Um, I did do part one at the ashram, but I did take the Sahaj meditation mantra. I did that at the comfort of my home. So whether the courses are online or in person, the teachers are always qualified. The courses are just laid out to always have a little bit of fun, to learn a little bit of knowledge. It's so there's not just a technique; it's actually mixed in with a little bit of knowledge and wisdom. And even the knowledge and wisdom is something that you can carry for a lifetime.
Yes.
They're very basic principles, but they can help you mature and grow. Like I said, I think I found the art of living at the right time where my daughter was 1 years old. I've participated in the courses a lot more than my wife because my wife is so busy with the children.
Mhm.
Plus, I got her pregnant again. It makes life really challenging. She recently just did Sahaj, so that was very fun. And she said she enjoyed it, not just because she was away from the kids for 2 hours a day, but that does help. So regardless of if you're stressed, if you're a mother who doesn't get a lot of time away from the kids, get a babysitter, get the husband, get somebody around you to just give you that 90 minutes to 2 hours for a 3 day weekend to allow yourself to just have this little me time.
Yes.
That's another thing about the art of living that I feel um, a lot of people might not even see it this way, but the art of living and the programs are really for you and
Mm.
nobody else. They're really for you. And as much as we invest into certain things that we like to do, whether it's the movies or I'm really working hard so I can get this new car
Mm.
or all these other things, how much are we just giving ourselves just something for our like true inner peace, you
Yes.
know, and especially the hustle and bustle.
Mhm.
And that's why I was really intrigued into the part 2 course because I just really wanted to tap into silence
Mm.
and give myself a few days of silence. So anybody who can do the part 1, phenomenal. Anybody who could do part 1 and hop right into part 2, that's
Yes.
even like it's even better. You have to care about you. And
Mm.
it's not and the real beautiful thing about the art of living, the techniques from Guru Dev is the formula that he presents to his followers is one that is more or less sustainable in a modern day living environment.
Very true. Very
And that's what impresses me the most,
beautiful.
right? Because the real formula is to meditate, do your breath work once a day. The breath work ends in a 20-minute meditation. And then later on in the evening, find time for another 20-minute meditation. So you're doing a breath work practice with 40 minutes of meditating a day that's chopped into two different segments. And another reason why this is designed like this is because it's scientifically backed. I know a little bit about it before Guru Dev has said it, but I also heard Guru Dev say it that 8 weeks of consistent meditation, twice a day, 20 minutes a day, will increase the gray matter in your brain. Big
Yes.
science words, but what that means is that you can develop new habits
Mm-hmm.
and that you can break out of old patterns
Yeah.
and that you just can grow and evolve because unfortunately we all get stuck. So if you just feel a little stuck and you don't know what to do, I would say reach out and try the part 1 course. It cannot hurt you, it can only help you. um the stress, if you have a stressful job, I highly recommend the part 1 course.
Yes.
And then from there, you can do what you want to do. but it's something that everybody can try.
Very true.
Yeah.
Actually, Gurudev is coming for the July 4th weekend. So why would you recommend someone doing part one course in the presence of Gurudev during the July 4th weekend? What makes that experience unique and powerful?
So the beauty of going to a retreat center like the Boone Ashram is
Going to be in the San Jose Convention Center, though.
I was going to be where?
In the San Jose Convention Center in the
Oh,
Bay,
this one is not at the Boone. It's just an in person
in Bay
with.
Area.
Oh,
With
very nice, very nice. Well, the beauty of that is you get the original setup,
that,
and you get to learn from the one who has been advocating this for the past 45 years. Um, and I can say just a few days ago, Gurudev was in Orlando for Father's Day, and
oh,
I took my father and we got to meditate together with Gurudev. And I asked my father, how was his meditation? Because, meditation is something for you and what's going on in your head and my head, whether I'm stuck on breakfast or you're stuck on dinner, we don't know who's thinking what, right? So meditation is one of those very individual experiences. So I just wanted to ask him how his experience was. And he just said, son, I've never had such a deep meditation in my life.
wow.
I used to not know if, I'm going deep enough in meditation or if I'm getting anything really out of it. And his first and only so far meditation with Gurudev happened to be the deepest experience that he's ever had. I know what my experience is like, but I'm pretty sure just like me, you like hearing other people's stories, and especially people that are very new um, to doing these practices. So he just led a very beautiful guided meditation. There really is something about the presence of Guru Dev, and because of that, that's something that you should do in person. And it's something that could really only be felt in person. You know, I've had many opportunities, and I make it on my to-do list to be at an in-person Guru Dev event at least once a year. That's my minimum. Anything more than that, I call, you know, just extra, which I'll take extra, but it really it's a very sweet treat to be with a living master, and it just shows you that there has always been ancient traditions. I've actually learning more and more about our ancestors and what they used to keep secret in life. You know, they if you ask somebody, what do you keep secret? They're very hesitant to share with you. Why? Because what we keep secret nowadays is what we're embarrassed about. It's
Hmm.
the things that we're shameful about. But what I learned about our ancestors and what I learned through a fun little topic that I like called etymology, uh, is the word secret is a derivative of the word sacred.
Hmm.
And so what our ancestors, the stuff that they kept secret, if they kept something hidden in a tomb, in a hidden secret, whatever they're keeping secrets is something sacred to them.
Hmm.
And, I believe that I have a deeper understanding of these occult secrets, because that's what the word occult means. It means that it was something that a group of people kept secret and didn't share amongst non-initiates. So it's beautiful to know that we always know that there's got to be more to life. There's got to be something, right? And they always say that the truth is sometimes right under your nose. And the way that we breathe, like we were saying in the beginning of this, we were talking about the breath technique. The way that we breathe and the way that we take breath for granted, when somebody can teach you how to mobilize that breath to kickstart the vitality and the life energy that's already in you, to get you back to more like of a joyful inner nature that we all had when we were children. We all remember, we weren't born with like this, you know,
Right.
face and, and, it's all the deadlines and the traffic and, all the backstabbers and stuff. They contorted your face, and that's another thing I was telling a friend is that I've had surgery, which means I have a scar.
Mhm.
And scar tissue is not easy to work with. It's a lot harder to work with.
Mm.
But a lot of us have scars on the inside that never get healed, that never get talked about.
Mhm.
And surprisingly enough, when you dedicate time to yourself with the part 1 course, with the part 2 course, you can actually start working on some of those inner traumas, um, and reawaken yourself to be a more lively person.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Keith. I just want to take a second to share the course during the July 4th weekend in the presence of Gurudev. Let me share it so that the audience can see. Here we go. Share. Can you see it, Keith?
Yes.
So the link for it, I put it in the chat. It is aolf.me/CalSky. And that's right there, July 4th to 6th at the San Jose Convention Center, uh, 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. on Friday, which is a holiday. July 4th, July 5th is also 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. and July 6th it's 8:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And if you register within the next few hours, you can use the code called Yes I Am In, and it gives you a $50 discount. And just so that in case people are interested, and thank you so much, Keith. You have been very generous with your time. I only told 30 minutes, but you have spent almost 72 minutes with us, and thank you so much. I really enjoyed your heartfelt sharing, your authenticity. You're so humble and so approachable, and I'm blessed to meet people like you who are popular and yet exhibit all the human values. And you are very inspiring, Keith. And keep inspiring people, and I look forward to seeing you in Boone. And
Sounds great.
do you have one parting word? In one word, how can you sum up part 1 course?
It's a gift, you
Mm,
know? It's a gift, and you're going to be grateful, because that's what happens when you receive gifts, you know? Um I'm grateful for it, and I'm very happy. Um there have been several days where I've in my life as I worked with the Kriya where I saw that because I took the time out of my day, high stress moments, but I said, you know what? You haven't done your practice today. Let's just try not to focus on this. Let's hit the breath work real quick. And I've watched myself go from certain moods to restabilizing.
yeah.
And that's the thing about being human is that we will get pulled away from our centers,
Mm,
we will have high highs and low lows. This is life, but how quickly, can you get back to the center? And yeah, I've had people come at me with road rage, people come out of their cars, and the old me would want to do so much and meet their intensity with my own intensity.
mm,
But sometimes, now you can just kind of keep it moving and protect your own space. Every day is not going to be a perfect day, but at least you have something to rely on to recenter yourself. And when you feel that and you are back in that center core, you're gonna feel good. And in that moment, a lot of times you're gonna be feel grateful. And because I've felt that feeling of gratitude many times, I would just call it a gift. And so it's been a gift also to be with you, to talk to
Ah,
you, and to share
thank you.
these stories. And I too hope to see you over there in Boone for Guru Purnima.
Sure, yes. And you have a great rest of